Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Tom Cruise is the last movie star. Not Robert Downey Jr., Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, Harrison Ford, or anyone else. They're all impressive actors, true, but I would argue that none of them have the star power of Tom Cruise. Now, what makes a movie star is, I grant you, a squishy question with no hard and fast answer. I'm going to discuss 3 criteria. Being able to get people to watch the movie based on their name alone, working with a lot of people in a wide variety of genres and being successful in most of them, and having that it factor or gravitas. But I want to hear your take as well. Some of these criteria are going to be squishier than others. It's easy to measure box office success and critical reception, but it's harder to measure something like gravitas. Now, the first thing that a star needs to be able to do is attract people to the movie with their name alone, consistently. Not every movie needs to be a billion-dollar film, and it shouldn't, but they need to be able to earn their budget back without having to rely on a franchise. This is a key distinction. This eliminates 3 kinds of film. 1. Pure ensemble films like the Oceans series. 2. Studio-driven franchises like the MCU, the DCEU, the Star Wars universe, and more. And 3. IP-driven films like Fast and Furious, Transformers, Harry Potter, and more. I would also include Mission Impossible here, except for the first one. I'm going to give Top Gun Maverick a pass because 36 years is a long time between sequels, and no one was exactly waiting for it with bated breath. Now, Maverick is an interesting case. For one, it's Cruise's first billion-dollar film. It was released 36 years after the original, one of the longest delays between sequels in modern times. Maverick grossed close to $1.5 billion in 2022. Compared to $357 million for the first one. To gross over $1 billion, people need to watch the movie more than once. It was a hit that no one expected, driven in large part thanks to its broad cinematic appeal. It's the moviest movie that I've seen in a long time, something I would only watch in theaters and not stream. Before every viewing, Cruise would come on screen and thank the viewer for watching the movie in theaters. It might sound cheesy, but I think there's something to it.
Extraordinary cast and crew gave it their all to bring you the most immersive, authentic, and entertaining cinematic experience. There's real jets, real popcorn, on the biggest screens exclusively and only in the theaters. So I hope you enjoy. We've made it for you.
Cruise makes films that are meant for the big screen, with him at the center, like a movie star. You've probably heard that he does his own stunts. In interviews, Cruise says that he does that to bring viewers along for the ride, to help put them in the middle of the action. He achieves this. One reason I enjoy his films is that I can be confident that what I'm seeing is Cruise and not a double. That's not meant to disrespect stunt doubles, who play an important part in Hollywood and, as others have said, deserve their own category at the Academy Awards. But just as I enjoyed Daniel Day-Lewis's method acting, I enjoy the action-driven cinema of Tom Cruise with Cruise at its core. Spectacle drives sales. It's why the highest-grossing films are epic films. It's why the 3 films with the most Academy Awards are epic films. Tom Cruise doesn't need to make an epic film to provide spectacle. Him acting in it is sometimes enough, and he does so when many of his peers are pursuing other opportunities, retiring, or changing up the kind of roles that they do. Tom Hanks, Will Smith, Johnny Depp, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and many others were once reliable box office draws, but they all toned it down. Not Tom Cruise. Of course, we also need tangible numbers. Epic doesn't count for much if it can't make money. All in, Cruise has pulled more than $11.5 billion at the box office across more than 40 movies. A respectable number. All of his peers have an MCU credit, so while they might have lead roles, they were part of an ensemble cast or had the driving force of the MCU behind them, or, in Zoe Saldana's case, a trifecta of the MCU, Avatar, and Star Trek. The Numbers.com has an interesting breakdown of the box office receipts. I want to pay attention to this number. Worldwide box office gross as a leading actor, where Cruise's worldwide box office total is close to $8.5 billion. A good comparison here is Robert Downey Jr. They were born just 3 years apart and had their careers start in the 1980s. Both had a career slump. RDJ for his legal troubles and Tom Cruise during the 2000s for his personal beliefs and the Oprah couch incident. Both have led successful franchises. Meanwhile, RDJ has struggled to find hits outside of the MCU since 2008, while Tom Cruise is somehow able to lift a movie's box office by himself. They're both great actors in their own right. but I would argue that Tom Cruise is closer to the movie star ideal than RDJ. In sticking with the MCU, RDJ has made a lot of money and defined the characters of Tony Stark and Iron Man for years to come. But a lot of people will only see him as Iron Man now, as evidenced by Doolittle, a critical and commercial failure. Cruise has been able to hop between movies and genres, which brings us to point number 2. The second thing that a star needs is to be able to work in multiple genres, ideally with people at the top of their game, and receive some measure of critical and commercial acclaim. Tom Cruise has worked with some of the best actors around in a leading role capacity. Francis Ford Coppola, Michael Chapman, Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, Martin Scorsese, Oliver Stone, Ron Howard, Rob Reiner, Sidney Pollack, Brian De Palma, Cameron Crowe, Robert Towne, Stanley Kubrick, Paul Thomas Anderson, John Woo, Steven Spielberg, Michael Mann, J.J. Abrams, Robert Redford, Brad Bird, Chris McQuarrie, Joseph Kosinski, and Doug Liman. He's worked in a variety of genre: action, comedy, drama, documentary, fantasy, musical, romance, romantic comedy, sci-fi, thriller, and more. Though since the mid-2000s, it's mostly been action movies. He starred in movies that have grossed more than $1 billion. He's been nominated for Best Actor twice, Best Supporting Actor once, and Best Picture. He earned an honorary Palme d'Or in 2022, though the grand prize, the Academy Award, still eludes him. And, as I noted, his movies have made plenty of money. His appeal, despite controversies, is helped by how he promotes his movies. In an anecdote from Will Smith's autobiography, Will, Smith says that he studied Cruise's press tours in an attempt to outdo him. He would get Cruise's promotional schedule and try to do 2 more hours than Cruise did. But, as Smith put it, quote, "Unfortunately, Tom Cruise is either a cyborg or there are 6 of him," end quote. There was no one that could outdo Cruise when it came to promotion. He would shake every hand and sign every autograph before leaving. That leaves an impression. It makes you want to see the guy's movie, and considering the receipts, it worked. The third and last is gravitas. What's his persona like? Does he try new things? In a way, yes, but crucially limited to the big screen. He's a movie guy, not a TV guy. Unlike many of his peers, Cruise has not made the jump to streaming or TV. Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson both starred in 2014's True Detective on HBO. That's not something that Cruise would do. He's only ever worked on movies, and only goes on TV to do press. Movies are his persona. Some movie stars try to put on an affect and present themselves as an everyman. Some of them might be, but Tom Cruise is not. You're not going to find him posting on TikTok, Instagram, or any other social media site, letting you into his life or showing you a day in the life of Tom Cruise. He's not like The Rock, who has hundreds of millions of followers and is in himself a brand. Now, Tom Cruise does have misfires. Leading up to Mission Impossible 3, which grossed $100 million less than Mission Impossible 2, he had a slew of bad press. Promoting Scientology, insulting Brooke Shields for using psychotropic medication, and jumping all over Oprah's couch. All of that led to a steep decline in Cruise's popularity in the 2000s. Paramount had harsh words for Cruise. It culminated in them ending a 14-year relationship with him in 2006. After the break, he got a publicist and avoided big budget films to focus on smaller and mid-budget films. The break with Paramount didn't last long. They were back together for the highly successful Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol and, of course, Top Gun Maverick, Paramount's highest grossing movie after Titanic. It's hard to think of anyone but Tom Cruise playing Ethan Hunt or Maverick. Just like it's impossible to think of anyone playing Dominic Toretto except for Vin Diesel, or anyone playing Luke Skywalker except Mark Hamill, or Indiana Jones except Harrison Ford. RDJ, while defining the role of Tony Stark and Iron Man, isn't irreplaceable, nor is Chris Evans as Captain America, Tom Holland as Spider-Man, Robert Pattinson as Batman, or Daniel Craig as James Bond. There, the characters are what's important. The actors simply step into the costume for the moment. Not with Ethan Hunt and Tom Cruise though. Tom Cruise is Ethan Hunt. He is Maverick. He's willing to go places with his characters that no one else will with theirs. Stars have seen their stars wax and wane over the years, but not Tom Cruise. He's a constant, consistent presence, seemingly never aging. As a producer and actor, he puts his money where his mouth is. That might have something to do with his work ethic. If the movie fails, then, as someone who invested his money in the project, he loses. And he does have his losses, but the wins outweigh them. Still flying planes and jumping off of cliffs, Cruise doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Movie stars need to stay active. If they stop moving, they die. As the last icon of an old ideal in an age where people prefer to watch movies on the small screen, it's nice to have someone making movies for the rest of us. Someone that loves and appreciates the art form of film.